If you've watched my videos before, you'll know my love for this, the Casio A158w. This is a brilliant little watch and I wear it all the time, but in the comments of loads of my videos, you've been asking me to try its bigger brother, the A168w. This is really similar, but is slightly newer and has some upgraded features. So in this video, I thought we'd compare the two. So if you're looking at them, you can decide which will fit your needs the best. And I'll also be revealing which one of these I'll be wearing moving forward. If you've already seen my A158 review, you'll know what you generally get with this watch. A really simple design with a digital display, a silver resin case with a thin stainless steel strap attached, and the world's worst backlight. Overall though, the watch is really cheap, looks pretty good, and it's super comfortable to wear. I know some people have had hair pinching issues with the bracelet, but I haven't personally. As such, this has made it one of my go-to choices for daily wear. And following the success of this model, they then released this, the Casio A168w. I guess this was designed as almost an exact replacement given the visual similarities. In fact, let's start by covering the clear similarities between the two. Firstly, the overall colour and style of the watches are very close. Both of these regular versions have a similar silver colourway with a darker dial. They also both have a stainless steel rear with an unlisted amount of water resistance. Though I've heard both of these are pretty much invincible, the two bracelets are extremely similar with the same type of clasp on each. Additionally, for the most part, they've both got the same basic functionality, with easy to use stopwatch and time change features as well as alarms. So they're really similar, but what separates them? Well, the first thing you'll notice is a difference in size. The newer A168 is substantially chunkier than its predecessor, coming in at 9.8mm in depth. This is 15% deeper than the A158 and makes more of a difference than you'd think. It's also a little bit wider and has slightly longer lugs. While it's certainly not a big watch by any means and it'll suit the vast majority of wrist sizes quite nicely, it is noticeable on skinnier wrists that increase in depth. The A168 sits taller on the wrist for sure, the backlight system being the culprit for this alteration, though we'll get onto the benefits that has later. Additionally, this A168 has concealed lugs, which make the watch feel a tiny bit larger than it actually is, compared to the regular styled lugs on the A158. Both watches weigh in at under 50 grams, with the larger one being the slightly heavier of the two. The bracelets are also slightly different too. Now in terms of quality, I'd say they're both about the same. You really can't expect that much in this price range. The newer A168 does include these slightly smaller links, which I guess makes it a fraction more adjustable. It has a bit more flexibility to it, but for all intents and purposes, they work the same. Both are really adjustable to your wrist size anyway. The A168 does have drilled lugs, which can make strap changes a tad easier, though I don't plan on changing either right now really. Design-wise, both of these do have slightly different dials, with the text being rearranged slightly. The A168 notably has more red on the dial, including the word Illuminator in block capitals. This is the reason that this watch is often referred to as the Illuminator Casio. It's a bit more colourful, whilst the A158 is definitely more understated. That one primarily just sticks to the blue and yellow colour palette. Both of these look pretty cool and retro, and I think they're definitely some of the better looking digital watches out there, especially for the cost. Housed within the watches is what I believe to be pretty much the same movement, though the watches do vary a tiny bit in performance. I'd say the display on the older A158 is actually a little bit better and a bit clearer. It's definitely easier to see from a variety of different angles, and I'm unsure why this is the case. You'd expect that to be in the newer model, if anything, or the same across both. However, the newer Illuminator has that superior backlight. When you compare the two, well, there really is no competition in dark conditions. The A168 is infinitely easier to read. Also, I find that the A168 is a tad more responsive. There's something slightly more satisfying about the pushers or the noise. I can't really pin it down, but it feels like it's responding faster. Now, how much should you expect to pay for each of these beauties? Well, generally, they're priced pretty similar at around the £20 mark on Amazon UK. You may be able to get the older A158 for fractionally less depending on the time of year and any sales they've got going on, although there's still rarely any real difference in price. So, which do I prefer and which of these do I recommend? Well, if you have larger wrists, say over 7¼ inches, especially if you're getting up towards the 8-inch mark, definitely recommend the A168. This is the clear choice and it'll look far more in proportion. The A158 is really a very small watch, so it will be dwarfed on larger wrists. On the other hand, if you do have thin wrists like me, then I'd certainly go with the A158. That smaller profile looks better, sits nice and flush to the wrist. This will sit really nicely in proportion. But what if you're in between? An average size wrist of say 7.25 inches? Well, if you really need that backlight, I'd obviously go with the A168, but if you're not particularly bothered about that, I'd probably stick to the A158. It is older, however, I personally prefer it for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I think the watch just feels better than the newer version. It has a better size to weight ratio, which makes the watch feel proportionally more substantial. It feels a little bit better quality. With the A168, the watch is noticeably larger, but with barely any increase in weight, making it seem less dense on wrist. Not quite hollow, but you know what I mean. Also, I just generally prefer the shape of the watch. It's nice and small and has a little bit more curvature to it when you compare that with the box-shaped A168, which looks a little bit more like a Lego brick. And as such, I just think it's a little bit more elegant and versatile. Either way, whichever one of these you choose, I think you'd be pretty pleased. Considering the cost, these Casio watches seem to last forever and they're fantastic value for money. Especially if you're looking for a low-cost daily wearer, you really can't go wrong. I'll link them both in the video description if you want to check one of these out for yourself. For me, I'll be wearing the original version. Let me know which one you prefer in the comments section. Subscribe to see more of these affordable watch videos. I'll see you in the next one.